"Chris, what you doing home?" Angela, my wife of 28 years, asked. She had just stepped through the garage door and saw me sitting at our kitchen table less than 10 feet away. Her figure briefly blocked the view of the tall, younger man trailing in behind her. Angela still looked stunning. At 5 feet 9 inches and 145 pounds, she carried herself with the same grace that first caught my eye decades ago. Her auburn hair was shoulder length, her makeup flawless, as always. Today, she wore a fitted white blouse, unusually with one extra button undone, and a black linen skirt that drew attention to her legs. The 3-inch heels completed the outfit, making her look runway ready. I glanced at her for a second, amused by the ridiculous question, and replied, just as bluntly, "I live here." That familiar flicker of irritation passed over her face, an expression I'd been seeing more often lately. She snapped, "Of course you live here. What I want to know is why you are home at 3:30 in the afternoon." It's no secret that I've loved Angela since the day we met. Back then, she was an administrative assistant at a major firm where I had a big meeting. She greeted me in the lobby and escorted me upstairs to the executive suite. 4 hours later, when she walked me back down, I asked her out to dinner. And that was the start of everything. The man behind her moved to her side now. I expected arrogance, maybe a smug smile. But instead, his sharp eyes revealed concern. Clearly, this wasn't going the way he had envisioned. "I suppose I could ask you the same thing, Angie. Why are you back home so early?" From the beginning, Angela and I had been inseparable. I devoted myself fully to her and our future. I poured my energy into building a successful insurance agency. With encouragement from her company, Angela earned her degree, rose through the ranks, and eventually led HR in their Hartford office. I had given her my loyalty, my love, my life. But recently, the woman I adored had changed. As I sat there now, I barely recognized her. The betrayal I uncovered cut deep, but I stayed calm, because now it was my turn to make her feel what I had felt. I gave her a familiar, crooked grin. She straightened up. "We came home early to talk with you." I asked, locking eyes with her. That's when a guy decided to speak. He stepped forward, extended his hand confidently, and said, "Mr. Harrington, Chris, I'm Michael Browner. I'm a new attorney at Kellerman and Sons. I've been collaborating with Angela for the past few months." I didn't take his hand. I didn't even look at it. I kept my gaze on Angie, forcing down the animal urge to leap up and strangle the life out of him. "I know exactly who and what you are," I growled. That's when I finally saw it. Angela's nerves were showing. She flinched when I added, "You once threatened to cut off the balls of the last guy who called you that. And now you let this clown talk to you like that in your own house." I gestured toward him. Angela looked startled. She wasn't used to being off balance. She probably thought they had this moment completely under control, that I'd simply accept it all with quiet embarrassment. But when I glanced at her so-called friend, I could tell he was feeling the pressure. His face was tense. I'd bet every muscle in his body was clenched. This wasn't going to be the neat, clean confrontation they imagined. I took a few deep breaths, forcing the fury into a quiet corner of my mind. It was time to move forward. "Let's get on with this," I thought to myself. It's time to throw them off stride again. "Why don't I make 3 drinks? I offered. "We can talk in the living room. A glass of wine, please," was Angie's subdued request. I turned to her new toy, who looked tense. He replied with a stiff smile, "Angela tells me you enjoy bourbon and craft beer." I nodded and said he was right, then rose from the kitchen table and walked over to the bar in our family room. As I left the room, I could hear them whispering urgently, moving away toward the living room. Clearly, they needed to recalibrate. A few minutes later, I joined them. They were seated next to each other on the couch. I handed Angela a glass of her favorite Merlot and gave the clown a tulip glass filled with amber ale. I took my seat in the armchair across from them, raised my glass in a silent toast, and took a slow sip of my bourbon, letting the burns steady me. He mirrored the toast, took a sip, held his glass up to the light, and analyzed the beer like a professional sommelier. "This is one of the most layered amber Alesh I've ever tasted," he commented. "It's Pabst Blue Ribbon," I replied casually. His face twitched with offense. Angela blinked and said, confused, "But you always say that Pabst tastes worse than donkey pee." Literally the worst beer ever made. She stopped midway through her sentence as she noticed the smirk spreading across my face. "You're such a jerk," she snapped. "We came home to have a peaceful conversation, and you've done nothing but mock and belittle us." I just grinned and replied, "I'm the rude and condescending jerk? Sounds like the perfect moment to begin your heartfelt talk. Maybe you'll teach me how to have a kind, respectful, loving discussion from the perspective of my ever-faithful wife." Angie visibly winced and looked away. The lawyer, her friend, decided to take the lead. "Chris, we're here because—" I cut him off. "You had it right the first time." "Excuse me?" he said, looking confused. "When you first walked in, you addressed me as Mr. Harrington. That's the correct form. I prefer and insist you continue using it." His cheeks reddened. "Or just sir," I added, shrugging. Before he could say another word, I turned to Angela with ice in my voice. "So, what do you want to talk about?" When the lawyer opened his mouth again, I raised a hand. I said, "I'm talking to my wife." "Sit there, sip your exotic amber donkey piss, and keep quiet." Angela's fury boiled over. "Your behavior has been appalling this afternoon. I wanted to stop right now." I nodded thoughtfully and asked, "Would you say my behavior today is better or worse than yours over the last month or so?" "What are you talking about?" she asked, clearly alarmed. The lawyer looked like he was holding his breath, probably realizing their little plan had already begun to fall apart. Looking directly into Angela's eyes, I said, "I honestly don't know what disgusts me more, your betrayal with this pathetic excuse of a man, or the way you thought you could lie about it." Her eyes widened. "You know, apparently, I have more allies at your firm than you do. 2 weeks ago, I got an anonymous email, came with pictures. Middlewoods Park, picnic lunch, hand-holding, and some pretty passionate kissing." Angela looked stunned. "I'm sorry you found out that way," she said quietly, scrambling to recover. "So," I asked flatly, "do you want a divorce?" "No," she said quickly, shifting to the edge of the couch, her elbows on her knees. "I love you, Chris. I don't want to lose you. What's happening with Michael? It's just temporary. He's new in town. He doesn't know anyone. I'm sure once he settles in, he'll find someone else. This is just a phase." "That doesn't work for me," I said coldly. "I signed up for loyalty, not deceit. I've given you everything. You've given yourself to someone else. Divorce is a much better fit for my future than an unfaithful spouse." Angela was desperate. "Please, Chris, this is a one-time thing. It was just a rush. I needed to feel something new. I swear it'll end soon. It'll never happen again." I took a sip of bourbon and let the silence stretch. "First of all," I finally said, "your promises mean nothing anymore. Everyone in this room knows you're lying." Angela tried to interrupt, but I talked over her. "Second, why should I believe this was your first affair? For all I know, it's your 50th. Her voice broke as she pleaded, "Please think this through. We've built so much together. Kelly's married, starting her own family. We're so close to retirement. Just a few more years, and we can enjoy everything we've worked for. This fling with Michael will be ancient history by then." I stood up and walked back to the den to top off my drink, not bothering to ask if they wanted anything. I wanted my disrespect to be loud and deliberate. When I returned, they were whispering to each other again, clearly shaken. "May I speak?" the clown asked nervously. "The floor is yours," I said dryly. He straightened himself and tried to speak with some dignity. "Angela's right. This is just a brief connection. I regret being involved with a married woman. It was a lapse in judgment. But your reaction, threatening divorce, I think that would be a mistake. You spent nearly 30 years building a life together. Don't throw it away." Then he said something that told me everything about how little he really understood. "She was worried about the prenup her father made you both sign. But don't worry. Those things don't hold up after 30 years. Laws change, wording expires. A decent attorney can have it tossed out in court. And besides," he added smugly, "without rock-solid proof of an affair, proof stronger than casual touching in a public park, you've got nothing enforceable." I stared at him in disbelief. Turning to Angela, I said, "I'm still trying to figure out when you became this stupid." Then back to him, "I have no idea why you're giving legal advice. You graduated in the bottom quarter of your class from Texas Southern, consistently ranked one of the 10 worst law schools in the country. His mouth opened to protest, but I cut him off. Know thy enemy. That's one of my rules. Then I turned back to my wife. What's your next move, Angie? She took a breath and replied, Michael and I are spending the weekend together. I'll be staying at his place tonight, and tomorrow we're heading to New York. We'll be back Sunday. Even though I already knew her plan, hearing it crushed me. Her words tore through me like shrapnel. You're seriously going to spend our special weekend with him? I asked. The weekend we've shared every quarter for nearly 3 decades? All those Broadway shows, concerts, romantic walks, and you're tossing it all in the trash. She looked shaken. Chris, I didn't hear a thing she said. All I could hear were the voices in my mind, screaming. End it. End it now. Looking over at a very concerned jerk, I asked, is your wife okay with you having with affair? My wife, Christopher, stop, Michael, is a widower. His wife died several years ago. He would never cheat on his wife. Even the jerk had the decency to cringe at my wife's last statement. I smirked and turned to Angela. Unlike you, I said, without missing a beat. Then I looked at Michael and asked, so it's true? You're a widower. His eyes shifted uneasily between us before he nodded and muttered, yes. I calmly reached down and pulled a manila envelope from the backpack sitting beside my chair. Flipping it open, I skimmed the top page and began reading aloud. Dr. Cynthia Browner, Emergency Department Surgeon at Ascension St. John's Hospital in Detroit. Spouse, Michael Browner. Daughters, Katie, 11, and Lacey, 9. Dr. Browner has submitted her resignation, effective June 22nd, and is relocating to Hartford, Connecticut, to be with her husband. After her children finish the school year, she'll begin a new position at St. Francis Hospital in Hartford. If I weren't so numb from betrayal, I probably would have burst out laughing at the pure shock written across Angela's face. You lied to me, she whispered, her voice breaking. This time I did laugh. A cheater gets deceived by another cheater. A liar fooled by another liar. I guess the world really is fair sometimes. Michael reached out and took Angela's hand. I was about to bark at him to get his hands off my wife, but I stopped myself. I didn't care anymore. I'm sorry, he said softly. Yes, Elite. I saw you, and I couldn't walk away. I wanted you too much. I needed you. He stood, still holding her hand, and said, let's go to my place and talk. Tomorrow we'll go to New York and enjoy the weekend. When we're back, we'll still have a few weeks before my family arrives. After that, you can be my wife full-time, and I'll be your husband and a father to the girls. Angela seemed to weigh her options before finally rising and turning toward me. After this weekend, I promise to end it with Michael completely. I'll be home on Sunday, and I'll be the same loving wife I've always been. We stared at each other for a long, heavy moment. I wondered if she could feel how deeply my heart was breaking again. I've listened quietly, I said, while you both laid out your story, expecting me to just accept it. Now I'm going to ask that you sit there and give me 30 uninterrupted minutes to explain what comes next. They exchanged uncertain glances before sitting back down, clearly unsure whether to comply. The very least you can do, I added coldly, is let me speak. Reluctantly, they nodded. I've set up a few Zoom calls for us, I told them, pointing the remote at the TV and pressing a few buttons. After the screen powered on, I greeted the 2 men who appeared. Peter, Lou, can you hear me? Loud and clear, Chris, Peter replied. I looked over at Angela. You already know Peter, our family's longtime attorney. The other gentleman is Lou Beard, his partner, and my new divorce attorney. And gentlemen, let me introduce Angela's co-star, Mr. Michael Browner, corporate lawyer and future defendant. Angela and Michael were frozen. Gentlemen, the floor is yours, I said. Without hesitation, Lou began. Mrs. Harrington, I represent your husband in the divorce proceedings. The petition has already been filed with the court earlier this afternoon. I advise you to retain legal counsel and prepare to be served officially. If you haven't appointed a lawyer by the end of business Monday, we will proceed with a process server. The grounds are infidelity, he added. We have a detailed investigator's report containing audio, video, and text documentation of your relationship with Mr. Browner. As Lou finished speaking, I grabbed another manila folder from the floor and tossed it onto the coffee table. The loud slap made both jump. It's a copy of our divorce petition, including the private investigator report. I told the stunned couple, while the jerk reached for the folder. Angie looked back to the screen. Our legal position is simple, Lou continued. We will be demanding full enforcement of the prenuptial agreement. He paused, then added, I'm sure you recall that every 2 years, your family's legal and financial documents go through a comprehensive legal review. That includes the prenup. To ensure it remains valid and aligned with state law, it has been revised accordingly, each time with your signed and notarized consent. Over the past 28 years, your signature appears on every single revision. He looked straight at the screen. We have no doubt whatsoever that this agreement is legally binding and enforceable. Then Lou's voice turned colder. Per a unanimous vote last night by the board of Harrington Brokerage, you, Angela, have been relieved of all corporate duties, effective immediately. Your professional relationship with Mr. Harrington and the firm is over. You have 7 days to return your company vehicle. Your corporate credit cards have been paid off and deactivated. Your phone service will be shut off in a week. Your memberships at Cedar Mountain Country Club and LA Fitness have also been terminated. In addition, all 3 joint credit cards you share with my client have been paid off and canceled. Access to shared savings, checking, and retirement accounts has been frozen. Lou continued in a factual tone. According to the terms of the prenup, we are seeking an 80/20th division of liquid assets in favor of Mr. Harrington. Furthermore, Mr. Harrington will retain full ownership of the house, free and clear. We've also submitted a formal request to expedite your removal from the property. Since you have another residence, one you've already shared with Mr. Browner, we intend to argue that it is far less disruptive for you to relocate. We're asking the court to award Mr. Harrington full and immediate possession of the property, giving you 30 days to retrieve your personal belongings. There will be no spousal support, and of course, child support isn't applicable. Any other claims made by my client are minor and will be explained by your own legal counsel. Lou finished with a glance toward the camera. Chris, did I leave anything out? I shook my head. You nailed all the key points, Lou. Thanks. The screen instantly went dark. Angela shot up from the couch. Wait, she screamed. Bring them back. I have questions. I laughed. That's not how this works, Angie. You'll have to hire your own lawyer if you want answers. You absolute bastard, she growled. I'm going to ruin you. Still grinning, I turned toward her boyfriend. Hey, genius. What does your brilliant legal expertise say? Do you think this woman is actually going to destroy me in court? He remained silent. That silence said everything. Angela collapsed onto the couch like a deflated balloon, her arms wrapped around her midsection. I leaned back, smiling from ear to ear, and casually lifted the TV remote. I gave her a little wave with it before turning back to the television. As the second Zoom meeting came online, I said, Jake, can you hear me? Hi, Chris, came the reply. I've got a conference call coming up, so I'll keep this short. Browner, you're fired. Effective immediately. Your personal items are being boxed up and will be left in the building's lobby. If you don't collect them within 24 hours, they'll be tossed. No reference. No recommendation. He turned his attention to Angela. I could hear his disappointment. Angela, Jake said slowly, you've been one of our top staff members for nearly 3 decades. But what you've done, especially as a senior team member, is indefensible. However, your long-standing service does count for something. He sighed. Your role in Hartford has been eliminated. I'm offering you the same position at our Albany, New York office. You have 1 week to accept the transfer. 30 days to make the move. The screen went dark again. Angela was sobbing into her hands. Michael sat beside her, slumped in silence. I looked over at him and gave him a smug, knowing smile. Rage began building on his face. He was younger than me, probably stronger too, but unfortunately for him, he was dumber than a bag of hammers. Just as he was about to explode, I calmly lifted the remote, pointed it at the screen, and clicked one more time. The screen came to life again. I asked Dr. Browner, can you hear me? The jerk and Angie sat in stunned silence. They were white as ghosts, and their mouths were hanging open. The face of a beautiful blonde filled the screen. She said, "I've asked you to call me Cynthia." "Sorry, Cynthia, the floor is yours," I answered. Michael shifted in his seat uncomfortably as the woman on screen, elegant, composed, spoke calmly but with steel in her voice. "Michael, I've officially filed for divorce," Cynthia announced. "Expect the papers in the next few days. The kids and I are staying in Michigan. I've made arrangements to keep my position at the hospital." His voice cracked with desperation. "Cynthia, please, this doesn't have to end. It was just a stupid fling. We can fix this." Cynthia's expression hardened. "I started digging after Chris reached out to me. Turns out, this isn't your first offense. In fact, it's the third time you've been fired for sleeping with coworkers." She paused, then added, "After reading the PI's report, I hired him to go deeper." Everyone in the room stared at the screen as Cynthia continued. "Mrs. Harrington, do you recognize the names Alice Packer, Joy Lickley, Tori Jones, Candy Phillips?" Angela's silence said it all. Cynthia gave a humorless laugh. "You don't need to answer. That was rhetorical. I already know. They're all your colleagues. And Michael? He slept with all of them." She tilted her head slightly. "So congratulations, Angela. You weren't the woman. You were just one of many." Then she addressed her soon-to-be ex one last time. "Tell me where to send your junk, Michael. You're no longer welcome in my house." The screen faded to black. That was when the jerk snapped. "I'm going to kill you," he roared, leaping to his feet. Without flinching, I reached between the cushions of my chair and pulled out my Colt .45. I aimed it directly at him. He froze, and his skin went pale. The fear on his face was exactly what I wanted to see. "You've got two options," I said coldly. "You walk out peacefully, or you sit your ass down and shut your mouth. Come at me, and I'll shoot your left nut clean off." He stared at me, weighing his options, then slowly sank back into the couch. I wasn't sure if I felt relieved or just disappointed I didn't need to fire a warning shot. Either way, it meant I could still go through with the final Zoom call I'd planned. I looked over at Angela. Her skin was ghostly pale, mascara running down her cheeks, and tears still flowing freely. She looked like someone who'd just survived a train wreck. "I've been seeing a therapist for a couple of weeks," I said quietly. Angela buried her face in her hands, sobbing harder. "It's funny, really," I continued. "You're the one who cheated. You lied. You shared your bed with this scumbag. And yet, I'm the one seeing a mental health professional." I actually chuckled at the absurdity of it. "How messed up is that?" After a pause, I added, "My therapist, Dr. Waters, asked me something that hit me like a lightning bolt." She asked, "Do you truly understand what it means when people say love is blind?" When she said it, something clicked. I realized that my love for you, Angie, was so deep that I never saw the signs. I wouldn't have known you were cheating if it weren't for that anonymous email. I loved you so much that I was blind to your faults. In my eyes, you had none. I hope you understand this. You will never find someone who loved you as much as I did. Angela rocked back and forth on the couch, quietly weeping. "I'm going to continue therapy," I said firmly, "because I need to learn how to open up again, how to trust again. I never imagined that someone I loved so purely could degrade me and destroy me the way you did. But I'll heal, just like I'll eventually move on without you." I told Dr. Waters about everything I planned for today. She wasn't exactly on board with it. She said the first few Zoom calls, understandable, a little justice. But this next one, she warned it might set back my progress, that it might reopen wounds I'm not ready to deal with. She's probably right, I admitted. But I don't care. This next call may hurt me, but it's going to hurt you more. I held up the remote again and slowly waved it at Angela. She flinched and recoiled into the couch, her panic rising. I pointed the remote at the TV and pressed the button. Everyone's eyes locked onto the screen. When the next face appeared, Angela let out a guttural groan. "Oh no, please God, oh no, I love you, Daddy," said my daughter Kelly. "I love you too, sweetheart." Why, Angie shrieked, "How could you possibly be this awful to me?" "I heard it all, Mom. I've heard every word you and your boyfriend has said over the last hour. I've heard what you've done and what you plan to do. You disgust me, Mom." "Sweetheart, please," Angela pleaded. This is complicated. You're too young to understand." Kelly's face on the screen twisted in disbelief. I'm 26, Mom. I'm a grown woman, happily married. What's happening here isn't complicated. It's disgusting and pathetic. Angela's breathing became more shallow as she whispered, Kelly, I felt so lost since you moved out. Like I've been in a fog. I missed you more than I could handle. Kelly looked coldly at her. So you're saying this is my fault? That I moved away, and now you're suddenly a lying cheater wrecking Dad's life and throwing away your marriage? No, Angela gasped. That's not what I meant. It doesn't matter, Kelly replied firmly. Honestly, I think we all need space from you right now. Angela's voice cracked as she raised it. I'll come to Boston this weekend. We'll talk face to face. I need to be near my baby girl, please. That's not going to work for 2 reasons, Kelly said calmly. First, you'll be in New York with that jobless homewrecker you're calling a boyfriend. I'm not going to New York, Angela snapped. And second, Kelly continued without emotion, Scott and I have a private celebration planned. Just close family and a few friends. We've rented a place near Cape Cod. Angela blinked, suddenly confused. What are you celebrating? Kelly smiled slightly. Since you're not invited, I'll go ahead and tell you. I'm 3 months pregnant. You're going to have a granddaughter in February. Angela's face crumpled. Kellyanne, I'm your mother. I insist you let me be there. Kelly's eyes narrowed. Not happening. I want that day to be filled with joy and peace. I don't want your lies, your betrayal, or your drama anywhere near it. She took a breath and finished, Goodbye, Mom. For the 4th time, the screen went blank. Angela collapsed, weeping uncontrollably. I stood up and calmly slid the Colt .45 back into the waistband of my pants. I'm heading out to dinner, I told her. I'll be back in about 2 hours. I turned to her, not unkindly, but with finality. Please pack your essentials, clothes, toiletries, whatever you need. Starting tonight, you're not allowed back into this house until the court processes the divorce petition. That should be within a week. Then I looked at her partner in disgrace. And you, I said, you've now seen what I'm capable of. I'm giving you 3 days to disappear. If you're still in this state by Monday, I promise you'll be limping for the rest of your life. I opened the front door, paused, and glanced back one last time at the 2 ruined people sitting in my living room. Enjoy your weekend in New York. It's supposed to be beautiful both days. And so we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below. And let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day. So click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.